Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk, a program production of the Former Legislators Association of Rhode Island. My name is Jim DeAmber, your host for the program, a member of the Former Legislators Association and a former state senator. Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome to our program the Speaker of the Rhode Island House of Representatives, the Honorable Nicholas Mattiello. So I want to welcome you, Mr. Speaker, to our program tonight, and I'd like to, as you would expect, my first question is going to go right to one of the most interesting debates Rhode Island has seen in a while, and that is the final passage of what has come to be known as the Roadworks, Rhode Island Roadworks program, affectionately called by another name, the toll bill. But I'd like you to speak to first what have come to be the main objectives behind the Rhode Island Roadworks program as you saw them unfolding in reasons for passage of the legislation.
Well, Jim, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to finally get on your show. I know we've tried to schedule it in the past, and it's great to be here. And it's a great opportunity to speak to our citizens and to let them know the important aspects of Roadworks and a lot of issues. The primary objective of Roadworks, I would say, is to shore up and repair our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is deteriorating probably too rapidly. I recently learned that it's actually the worst ranked in the entire country. That holds us back economically. So not only are we looking to make our infrastructure safe and sound to appropriately serve our citizens, once we remove that terrible rating of being the last in the country, it'll help us economically. So we're going to create jobs with the Roadworks, putting all those folks to work, repairing the infrastructure, stopping the deterioration, and lifting our ratings so that when folks look at Rhode Island to come here, to invest here, we're not last. And what I recently learned is that nationally, there's a couple of pillars for economic development. One is education, and the other one is infrastructure. And when you're last in either one, and we're last in infrastructure, they don't give you a second look. They consider you. They say, where are they on infrastructure? They cross you off the list. So Rhode Island is not even in the game competitively. And interestingly enough, other states all along the eastern seaboard that do toll have better infrastructure. They're better able to compete with us. So we're in fact absorbing the tolls in Rhode Island when goods get shipped here, and they can get the jobs from us because they're more competitive, because they have a better infrastructure system and a better reputation for having better infrastructure. So that's a competitive disadvantage that I thought was very inappropriate, very unfair for our citizens. So Rhode Island is finally, I would suggest too late and too slow to address it, finally going to address our infrastructure needs in a very appropriate way that brings 60% of the toll money from out of state, just like all the other states do. What's worked well in other states is going to work very, very well in Rhode Island.
You mentioned, Mr. Speaker, that the two pillars that a business is going to look to when examining the attractability of a state to move to, relocate, which brings jobs, is education and infrastructure. What makes infrastructure so significant?
Well, I'm certainly not an expert in that, but what the national publications do say,
yes.
and you saw it with GE going up to Boston. They actually asked that 2 local bridges be repaired, and the state had to commit a significant amount of resources. A business does not want to go into a community and then get faced with significant tax hikes to deal with the problem in the infrastructure. They want to be able to count on sound bridges. They want to be able to know and count on the fact that they can transport their goods. I've been told by truckers that actually, and I expect the trucking industry not to like an additional cost. That's fair, but it's appropriate and it's fair across the board. But they've indicated recently that it's hard to get independent trucks into Rhode Island as we currently sit. So why? Because we're known to have bad infrastructure. They blow out tires, they break axles, our bridges are in bad shape, they bang into the overpasses versus having, smooth passage, and that affects the truck. So our reputation is that it's not a good place for trucks to come into. So even from a trucking industry's point of view, having a better infrastructure to better serve their transportation needs is actually going to help that industry as well. Bad infrastructure, having a reputation as such, and actually having a bad infrastructure affects you negatively across the board, and that's something that we have no choice. And you get the folks that say, everybody agrees we have to fix it. Well, they don't get fixed without a significant amount of money, of dependable and predictable cash flow. You can't build a bridge and then watch it deteriorate. Once you fix something and you build it, you have to maintain it. You have to clean it every year. You have to paint it when appropriate. You have to weld it and fix the steel and cement where appropriate, so that our infrastructure is always at a sound level. And what we did with the passage of this bill is that we made sure for the next, for the foreseeable future, that we're going to be able to do everything that our roadways and our bridges need, and it's going to be at a good level.
Mr. Speaker, you mentioned about, the cost factor, and although the bill has come to be known as the toll bill affectionately or non-affectionately, there's really other sources of funding. Can you elaborate on the other sources of funding and how that's going to play out for the state?
All right. There's Garvey Borrowing, which the state has always done. We're actually trying to move away from that, but in light of the fact...
You want to explain what Garvey Borrowing is?
It's a means of borrowing against guaranteed federal monies.
Oh, okay.
So the federal money stream that's going to be coming in the future, we borrow against it. We issue bonds that are guaranteed by that revenue stream. So we're going to refinance some that have already been issued, and I think we get about $120-something million out of that. That's an approximate number. And we're going to issue $300 million in new Garvey bonds that are guaranteed by federal money, no risk to taxpayers. And so there's no risk that if the toll money expectations don't meet the expectations, that we're going to have to address it in any way. The worst that can happen is you don't do as many projects, but the bonds are guaranteed. It's a safer way. There's no reliance upon the tolls. The way we went forward saved 65% off the original proposal and interest. So it's much better for taxpayers. What the tolls do is it takes a portion of the total package, and it guarantees that 60% of the money is coming from out-of-state truckers. Just like Rhode Islanders contribute to other communities, outside money is now going to come into Rhode Island to make us competitive with other communities. And it's going to make sure that into the future, there's a steady flow of money so that all of our infrastructure needs can be taken care of. Our storm drains will be cleaned, our bridges will be cleaned and repaired and maintained, roadways will be surfaced when appropriate, and there's always community needs that DOT's never been able to address. When community roadways are in bad shape, and I'll tell you, I have representatives constantly complaining. I have one of the worst roads in the state in my district. I contacted DOT. They're very responsive, they're very courteous, but they don't have the money to address my community's
and it's 98th
needs.
on the list, which means it's 5 years away from coming around.
5 to 10 years away. That's inappropriate. Those communities need to attract businesses. I have addressed some infrastructure needs. CVS had a roadway in front of one of their buildings that was so bad, I was concerned it was impacting their trucks. We actually guaranteed money to address that need. You can't have a company like CVS or other companies in your community and not provide them an appropriate infrastructure. We have to be competitive. So we all say we want business, and we all do, but we have to provide the foundation to attract and serve those businesses while they're here.
The Roadworks program, multi-year, 5, 10 years, is one item I'd like you to address. The second is, I don't think people realize that the bill that finally passed is a substantial different piece of legislation that was originally proposed last session. You want to comment on the way in which you examined those aspects and made sure that the final Roadworks Bill was completely within the best interest of our state and all the citizens of our state.
Thank you. Great question, Jim. The actual Roadworks Bill was not a bad bill.
The first one?
The first one.
Okay.
The original proposal back sometime last year.
Last year, right.
The governor proposed a bill that required a significant amount of borrowings, roughly almost $600 million of borrowing.
Right.
I looked at it, I heard from businesses, I heard concerns, so I didn't formulate any judgment. Some people say I stopped it and I changed my mind. That's absolutely not the case. What I said is, we're not ready to move forward. The bill needs more study because I'm hearing concerns from the business community and I have to look at those concerns. The governor, myself, and the Senate president spoke. I indicated that I needed to see an economic impact study. We all agreed one would be appropriate. The governor had REMI, Regional Economic Models, Inc., a good outfit that a lot of states use, do a study on her proposal and others. The study came back that her proposal was best for Rhode Islanders. It produced the most gross wealth for Rhode Islanders. It created the most job for Rhode Islanders. It was best on the unemployment rate. It was a good plan. I took that plan and I showed it to an economist. They said, Remy's a good outfit, and here's the 2 or 3 or 4 other things you want to look at. So they gave us a few things to look at: the interest rates, the diversion rates. So all of the concerns were things that was suggested to me that we look at, and we looked at it. So when we came back, luckily we got more federal money coming in, so that gave us a lot of opportunity. And we took the original proposal and we ran a lot of numbers to the point where I couldn't see straight, because you're looking into the out years and you're looking at the cash flow. But we reduced the bond indebtedness to $300 million. That reduced the interest cost.
That was from $600 million down to $300 million.
To $300 million.
Right.
And because we're now doing Garvey borrowing, which are guaranteed by the federal dollars and not the revenue bonds, there's less risk. The interest rate gets better, which addressed a lot of the concerns, some of the concerns that I heard from the economists that I showed it to. So we cut interest rate, we cut the amount of borrowing. And the other thing we did when we looked at the total package, the comprehensive package, is we reduced and actually put in the legislation a maximum of $20 across the state. Folks have to, there's a couple of things that you have to understand about this. What I learned recently is people don't really know what a gantry is. It's not a toll booth. You know, you see pictures, I've seen pictures suggesting traffic jams. I actually had a good friend of mine ask me yesterday, is it going to slow me down on the highway? I said, no, it's not. She said, fine, go ahead, do it. I'm all in favor of it. It's not going to slow anybody down. There's no toll booths. In fact, the average Rhode Islander won't even see the gantries. They're high overhead, and they read transponders, and they take pictures of tractor-trailer trucks. Not car license plate, just tractor-trailer trucks. They don't even see cars. They see big pictures, big vehicles, and as the vehicle gets closer, it reads whether or not it's a Class A truck.
So they're not going, Rhode Islanders will see no toll booths.
No toll booths at all.
No slowing down of their being able to travel to the beach in particular, or here, there, or wherever they want to go. They're not going to see a toll booth or a disruption in their normal traffic patterns.
No disruption at all. They won't see them. And in fact, the gantries, and there's no set amount for trucks. We set a maximum. If you start on one end of the state and you go all the way through to the other end of the state, the maximum that the truck will pay is $20, which is a lot less than most other states on trucks. We're going to be 47 cents a toll mile driven. In other states, New York, it's I think 307. Other states, $1.50. Most states are over $1 on the Eastern Seaboard. So we're going to be very competitive, if not a lot less, when you consider tolls, and we'll have the benefit of those resources for our infrastructure. So the total package is much less. The actual maximum toll is about 1/3 less than the original proposal. So we massaged it, we worked it, we made it as lean and cost-effective as possible. And when I say we, that includes myself, the governor, and the Senate president. We all looked at this collaboratively, and the final product is one that I'm very pleased with. I believe our citizens should be very pleased with, and it's going to serve our state very well in the long run.
You mentioned jobs in terms of job creation for the state. What can we expect to see? When can we expect to see some of the first jobs take hold for the working guy that's, been out of work for a long time in our state?
Well, I know that the DOT is going to move very quickly. The reason for the surge in all of these plans, and even the original plan with as much interest as was built in, the reason it actually works and makes sense and is actually a good idea is because our bridges right now are deteriorating pretty badly. Once something starts to rust, once you start to have a deterioration in the concrete, it accelerates over time. The longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes. So we're going to have a surge. The borrowing happens pretty quickly. The gantries are going to go up a little more slowly, but the borrowing happens very quickly, so we'll have that surge of spending. And I'd have to work that out with DOT and contact them, but I would say in the very near future, the DOT is going to stop putting things out to bid. I know some projects are already designed, some projects are going to have to be designed. They've got them all scheduled, they've got them timed out, and they're going to stick to their plan. So I'm very confident. And I want to point out that we have a new director at DOT who's doing a great job. We have a new governor who's committed to reforming and improving DOT. It's being reorganized. They're hiring folks to handle certain tasks. They're going to have a lot of work to do. And I have the confidence that they're working towards doing that. And we put a lot of oversight in the bill. They have to report to us quarterly.
And you mentioned about the need for monitoring and making sure that DOT has a management structure that's cost effective. Because a lot of Rhode Islanders, I think, wanted to know or said, where did all our gasoline tax money go, on the projects? So I'm glad to hear that you can speak with confidence to what DOT is doing today. We can't erase what DOTs did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Right. I mean, it is what it is. But you're confident that the current director, with the changes that the governor is imposing, which oversight the bill requires, ensures that we will get a timely and effective use of our tax dollars and what the expected outcomes are.
I am, Jim, and it's always a work in progress. You always have to improve your systems and so forth, but I want to assure Rhode Islanders, you get this question a lot. My wife actually asked me that. She said, you've got to do a better job of explaining the gas tax. Yes. And the fees that we collect on,
licenses,
registration fees, all of the fees that go to infrastructure, those fees do not go to the general fund. They go into an infrastructure fund. The gas tax has never gone to the general fund. So I want folks to understand that.
Yeah, a lot of people think that every fee and every tax we pay goes into the, so you do want to repeat that, please, for the benefit of
the gas tax and the fees.
Registration fees. All go into that for roads, bridges, et cetera.
It goes into an infrastructure fund. It does not go to general the fund needs. It goes exclusively to that. Now, we're all driving smaller cars. The gas tax is a per gallon fee, and Rhode Islanders are using less gas than they have. Our cars are more efficient than ever before. Some of our cars are electric. That's a diminishing revenue source in the future. That's just by nature of the type of fuel that we tax. So we have to look at different ways, and that's another advantage of the tolling. As the gas tax diminishes in the future, we'll at least have that steady stream in the tolling proposal, which is a revenue source that most other states are relying upon, and you have to rely upon it if you want to become competitive. Asphalt is more expensive than it's ever been, and our revenue source is decreasing. So it does not, and construction costs are increasing, so it does not surprise me at all that there's a difference. There's a deficit in the amount of revenues that we're bringing in to address this need. Yes, we have a big budget, but the budget's all accounted for. And I want to point this out. I try not to get too partisan, but my last budget, Every
Unanimous.
Republican voted for it. So, and
First time I could ever recall.
So I would assume that there was not too much fat that anyone knew about in that budget if they supported it. I would not support a budget that I thought there was fat in it. I'm telling you there was not, and it was supported unanimously. So
Even by the most conservative of the Republican minority that's in the House voted for it as well.
They all voted for it. And I would say that was a good vote. I compliment everybody on voting for that. We had a phenomenal pro-business budget. You know, we did a lot of good things in that budget. So,
which I want you to turn to, because I think the viewers need to know exactly another area that, you know, we need to do. There's a lot of other indexes where we were ranked at the bottom that you're trying to reverse. Explain to our viewers, because you and the governor both have this mantra of jobs, jobs, jobs. But in order for that to happen, there's got to be a change in how Rhode Island is perceived. Explain the changes that were made either last session in the budget and what you are proposing maybe to do this session that combined addresses that issue.
let's talk since I've become speaker, because
Yes.
we did some significant things. There's only a couple of budgets there. My first budget, we reduced the corporate tax rate from 9% to 7%. We went from the highest in New England to the lowest in the Northeast. Rhode Island's very competitive in our corporate tax rate now, which is great for business. We raised the exemption on the estate tax from $921,000 to $1.5 million, and we got rid of the cliff. Last year, we eliminated sales tax on utility costs for businesses. Right. We eliminated the radiology tax that was really hurting that particular industry. So we eliminated Social Security tax, Rhode Island tax on Social Security income from many Rhode Islanders. That was an economic boom for a lot of people. So we've actually been reducing taxes and making this state much more business friendly. Now, I hear from folks at forums that have national audiences, and right now, Rhode Island's being recognized as being a state that's moving to be much more business friendly. What is sometimes ironic is that outside of Rhode Island, they're recognizing that, and they're actually recognizing the leadership is moving in that direction, and that all of my colleagues in the House, all the senators, the executive branch, we're all moving in the same direction, and we get that recognition to a certain extent nationwide, but we don't necessarily see it because it's so close to home in Rhode Island. So those are the types of things that we've been doing. Now, Jim, I've got to say this. Despite all of that, when you work so hard in your budgets to make those fundamental changes for the state of Rhode Island, and then what matters the most to business, infrastructure, you're rated last, that's counterproductive. You're fighting against yourself. So what we're doing now is we're removing yet another barrier so that Rhode Island can become more successful in the future. So this infrastructure plan, where we didn't reinvent any wheel, we're doing it just like other states do it, but this is going to make us more competitive. Right. This is something I'm pleased with, because my goal has always been, based on the things we've done, I mean, we've reduced a lot of taxes and costs over the years. This is an investment. Sometimes you cut, sometimes you invest. You find the right balance, our economy is going to take off, and we're set to take off.
As you see it, it's part of a comprehensive vision to move Rhode Island forward. Anything planned for this session in the area of economic development? Yes,
we're looking. The governor certainly concentrated on jobs, jobs, jobs in her budget. I like the themes. I haven't really studied the budget that closely. Now that we finished infrastructure, and that was why I was very interested in resolving that so that we can now pivot to the budget. There's a lot of emphasis on the collaboration of higher education in our business community, and we're going to work on that this session. We don't utilize higher education enough in Rhode Island, and advanced industries, high-tech industries are going to be the wave of the future. The thriving economies all rely upon high-tech industries, and in order to succeed in those areas, you really have to have a lot of collaboration between your institutions of higher learning and your business community, and we're going to work on that, and that's going to be another leg of our stool that really helps Rhode Island move forward. So you have to be proactive today. You have to work to create jobs. The models that worked in the past are not working anymore. So we have to change how we address things, and we can't stay stagnant. If you like the way our economy's been, we don't need to do anything. I'm not satisfied with where we were, and I'm not satisfied with where we are. We have to be better. We can be better. I think Rhode Island is great, but Rhode Island is poised to be even greater than we are right now, and economically we're going to be in better shape.
To shift gears a bit away from economics to, Rhode Island is facing a different crisis in the social area of a high number of deaths related to opiate overdosing. There's been, some changes in our laws regarding marijuana. What can we expect to see on that front this session?
Well, they're two distinct issues. With the high number of overdose deaths, that's very sad. It's very concerning. It's a national problem. All of our neighbors are having the same problem we are. I think and I'm going to commend the governor for committing resources in this budget to that. I have to study that.
Equipping police departments with the antidotes and stuff like that.
Those are all necessary things, and there's not one thing that's going to work best. There's no one silver bullet. You have to look at things comprehensively. But I believe you have to have a dedicated approach dealing with prevention. We have to educate kids when they're young, and we have to stay with them. So prevention and education is of vital importance, and then treatment is important. And treatment is not something that you apply in a short period of time and the patient's cured and you move on. When you're dealing with addiction, that's a lifetime challenge. You've got to stay with folks, you've got to work hard, and you've got to be dedicated, and you've got to apply the resources to it. So it's something that we're going to look at. I'm very pleased with the Good Samaritan bill. That's one arrow in the quiver, right. Not part of the comprehensive solution, but we're going to look very heavily at prevention and treatment and education.
Are we going to see legalized marijuana in Rhode Island?
Well, I can't predict the future, either way. I will tell you that I have folks that very much want it. I have folks that very much don't want it legalized. And I've indicated, as I do with every issue, I start in the middle and I study it. And we've got a lot of studying to do. We've got a lot of work to do. Where that brings us, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that there's going to be a referendum question in Massachusetts. Oftentimes, regions go in the same direction on issues.
So we don't expect to see a major change this year on that issue.
What I've said is I don't really know where that's going to go, but it's not on my agenda, so I'm not expecting any change this year. I'm expecting that we'll continue to study it this year, and on big issues, I think you have to give them time, and I have no expectation on where that will go.
We have about a minute left. You're going to be a superdelegate by virtue of your status as Speaker to the Rhode Island to the Democratic National Convention. Are you committed to any particular presidential candidate right now? And how do you foresee what's developing right now with the primary process? Might the superdelegates make the difference in terms of who gets nominated? Maybe we see a different person nominated than who's running right now.
Well, I'm personally supporting Hillary Clinton.
You're committed right now.
I came out early for Hillary Clinton. I don't speak for anyone but myself, but I will say that I think she's a very intelligent woman. It'd be wonderful to see a woman in the presidency, and she has the experience to get the job done. But that's a complex political process.
When's that presidential primary? It used to be in March, but no, it's April now, right? April. It's going to be in April. So Rhode Islanders will have their say. They'll have their opportunities. It's certainly an interesting development that's, for both parties, that's evolving. I mean, what the outcome is going to be, only
exactly
anybody knows.
I watch that with all the interest you do. I'm certainly not an expert.
Well, Mr. Speaker, 30 minutes goes by very quickly, and I want to thank you for your time today and answering all of our questions.
Jim, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to coming back.
Okay, sound is down in it. Now, a little, your district.